what's up guys? Nate here from Protoculture with Sonic Academy, and we're back with another full track walkthrough tutorial series at Sonic Academy. This time we're approaching the project as a remix, and we're going to be creating a sort of progressive trance remix in the style of sort of Anjuna beats kind of flavor. Obviously with it being a remix, we started off with a brief and some parts to work from, this case being a vocal and the initial chord structure, some pads, etc., which we will then flesh out into our own ideas. In the course we started talking about the style, the direction, and how to best approach a remix before diving straight into drum production, bass lines, synths, mixdowns, arrangement, and finally the mastering stage. Now, if you want the complete experience of this course, you can head over to sonicacademy.com for the full tutorial series. Right now we're just going to do a kind of brief overview, take a look at the project, and walk you through some of the steps as to how we came about our finished remix. Let's dive in quick and take a look. Right, welcome guys. We're going to take a look at the project. As I said, just a brief overview of everything. This is sort of the finalized project, so a lot of this stuff has actually been bounced to audio. We do provide the original MIDI parts as well. I saved a project sort of halfway through as well before I go to the stage. I do like to take everything to audio at some point during the track. So anyways, let's dive in. We've got everything arranged into buses or groups inside of Bitwig. Right, so we've got the master bus, we've just got a tool and a DP meter 5 in here, and then also our master bus chain is in here. There's a full video on the entire chain. This guide track is literally just placeholders. Just initially when we start doing the arrangement, we set up the guide track just to kind of give us a bit of direction as to where the track was going to get going. Let's take a look at the drum parts first. So I'll open these up. I've got the kick in the sort of root of the drum folder here. So the kick has been bounced to audio already, partly because I like to have control over the fades and such here. So yeah, you can see I don't like my kicks being too long, so it's really kind of taking the first 16th here and then fades out afterwards. It's a lot easier to control visually when it's in audio. And our kick drum, sort of after it was bounced, we had some EQ and filtering just ready for the arrangement. If we open up here, this was actually kick 2 initially. So kick 2, and that's the kick that we designed. We then ran that through a tool. I think it was just a gain stage, that a little bit through a Bitwig compressor, some more EQ, and then obviously we did an EQ after the fact as well, but this was after it was bounced to audio. So that's it for the kick. Let's look at the percussion stuff here. Again, everything is bounced to audio here. We have a number of samples. I believe pretty much everything here is from the Sonic Academy Ultimate Drums libraries. Let's take a listen to this section here where everything is in. So we had some tambourines, it's kind of gritty tambourine sound. Our open hats, some ride cymbals that gradually fade in. That was another offbeat hat there. This is the E-hat, so this is a really handy little module inside of Bitwig. This one's also been bounced. I'll show you those in just a sec. So this is just a hat synthesizer that we automated some of the decay time with. So you can hear those getting longer and longer as they build in certain places. Claps again, this was also from Sonic Academy samples. I'm going to just take a look at the drum machines here. These claps were actually layered together, and we used some additional effects. So these have actually been disabled right now, but these were two samples layered together and then run through newfangled saturate to cut the peaks off. They were clipping quite a bit. So we clipped those and then ran it through an EQ and some convolution reverb from Bitwig, and then some additional EQ on the end there. Those sound like this. And the same goes for most of this stuff. It's just layers of percussion. We started with a single drum machine, which I believe is this one here, and then started to split stuff out from that. Bitwig allows you to easily, once you use the samples, you can add them to new tracks, and it actually copies the MIDI from those parts as well. If I enable that, you can see the drum machine here. And these are mostly just samples that we're working with that were then expanded. We've got all the MIDI parts here in this arranger section, which we started off most of the track doing in the arranger and then pulling it out as audio to finish the track off afterwards. So that's some of the drum parts. Let's take a look. There's a few extra loops and bits and pieces that we added here. So this section here, this was just a few little additional percussion pieces that we did. Again, Sonic Academy samples here inside of the drum machine with some reverb on certain parts. This open house hat is something I like to do quite often, is to use an open hat but then reverse it so that you get this kind of nice sucking hat sound. Play that back for you as well. So these last two are just loops that we dirtied up a little bit in EQ to kind of bring them more into the mid-range. And then obviously with the bass line, that's going to make up the full groove. So with the bass line here. So let's open up the bass quickly. We'll take a look at the parts there. It's essentially 3 different parts. We've got a really simple sub-bass section here. And I believe this was just Anna initially. We can check here. Yep, there you go, Anna. If we just enable this again. And I think this one we actually did from scratch. Yeah, we just designed this sound from scratch. It's a pretty simple bass sound, mostly just the subs. And you can see here we EQ'd a lot of the tops off there and then ran that through Shaperbox. So Shaperbox I do use a lot. You can do everything that Shaperbox does inside of Bitwig with its default plugins, but it's just a lot easier and quicker for me. All my shapes and stuff are in there. So you could replace this with LFO Tool or whatever you want. However, I do really recommend you check out Shaperbox. It is an excellent piece of software. So now to make up the sort of mid-range section of the bass, we've got this more saw wave kind of vibe. So this was kind of the more mono sounding mid-range bass. We cut a little bit of the lows off. Again, this is Anna as well. And a little bit of OTT on this one just to kind of really squash it a little bit. And then the stereo component, which is playing the same as this mid-range one, but it's more of a detuned sound with some delay on it, is this one. And again, this is part of the reason why we bounce a lot of the stuff into audio, is because I can actually print the delays in there. So when it comes to cutting things and just neatening stuff in breakdowns and such, you don't have that delay spilling out. It's in audio, so you can just chop that off. Right, so that's the bass sounds. Again, all Anna. Fairly simple processing, a little bit of reverb, some delays on the bass. I think there was some processing in these actual Anna ones. We can just open these up. Yeah, some additional EQ, some saturation, compression, delay. That's the stereo mid-bass one that we've got in there. And again, we've got all the MIDI parts in here so that you can actually play those from there. And then just disable those, and then the audio takes over. It's one of the great things I love about Bitwigs. You can have these hybrid channels and have your audio bounces and your original MIDI parts on the same thing, and you don't lose anything. You just have to disable and enable them whenever you need to. Cool, let's move on to some of the synth parts now. The sort of melodic components were really simple intentionally. I wanted to just do a sort of central theme that carried on the whole way through the track. And it's really all revolves around this little arpeggiator melody, which kind of grows, and there's automation happening with that. And there's an additional melody that comes in on top of it later on. So that sounds like this. Cool. So this one was aptly named Anjuna Pluck. It's actually a preset from Anna 2. Anjuna Plucks. We modified this one slightly. And then there's a lot of automation going on with the various different effects on here. There's a bunch of reverb and delays that are being automated on this one. Then there's an additional lead on top of that for in the breakdown, which is more like a super saw kind of lead, which comes in here. This one is actually done in polymer. So this is the Bitwig synth. You don't have to work in this modular view here. We can just open it up down at the bottom here. Super cool synth. Very simple, but very, very useful in the Bitwig environment. We'll open up the effects page here. You can see there's a bunch of stuff going on. Some EQ. We're using Newfangled Saturate a few times in this. You can replace this with any clipper that you want, but that's the one that I have on hand, so I use that a lot. And reverb, and then going into Shapebox again, and a filter. So that makes up the leads. There's some additional little points of interest that we added on top of the leads as well, like this little addition here. Just essentially the whole track, just using parts of the original arpeggiator. So this was just one of the notes that we pulled out. The only one that's actually using additional notes is this little and a sound down at the bottom here, these little blips. Then there's a number of pads as well that kind of make up the chord structure, and they also go along with some of the ambient stuff. So we'll take a look at the pads first and then check out some of the ambient parts, because those are quite important to this track, especially when you're working with more minimal stuff. You want to be able to make up the background with ambient sounds, just add some interest. So we've got two different pads in this one, or three actually if you count the bass pad there that we did with polymer. The other one is this one, which is kind of like a gated pad sound. And this pad is actually a preset from one of the Sonic Academy courses I did on sound design inside of Anna. So if you've done that course, this is the one that we did, the dynamic pad sounds. There's an additional pad here from Polysynth, which is again a Bitwig synth. Just sort of typical detuned saw pad. And a bass pad down at the bottom here. So those make up the sounds in the breakdown. Now the whole way through the track, except for the break, because we have the pads running there, but a lot of the track we have this ambient stuff running. So some of these were made from Sonic Academy samples. Once again, I believe it's from Ultimate Effects. And then some vocals that we took and stretched and added a ton of reverb to. So this is kind of the overall effect that you get here. Some auto panning and stuff going on there, mostly just EQ. A lot of the sort of sound design stuff we bounced as well. There were some sort of long reverbs that we did and then bounced to audio. So that's essentially the atmospheric section in the background. Lastly, we come down to the vocals. So we've got these kind of ad-libs in the main section. These have got the same processing as the leads and the backing vocals. These ones were some additional bits that we did with sort of reversing things and adding tons of reverb to as well. Some sort of granular effects and things like that to kind of just generate a little bit more ambience there. We did some reverse reverbs just to lead into the actual vocal itself. This is the vocals that are bounced. I'll open up the actual working files here so you can see they are disabled currently, but we can see what's going on. So we were provided with lead vocals and backing vocals, and we had overdubs for each of those, so 2 versions of each. The lead vocals, we went with the first lead take and used the overdub as a sort of secondary layer, and then spread that out with lots of chorusing and stuff. Isotope's free vocal doubler making up the sort of big width on the lead vocals. And then obviously the main one is sort of dry, just with a short slapback delay on it, the main lead. Then we've got some ducking reverbs set up here using the tool from Bitwig, the audio sidechain tool, to send the vocal into the reverb that it's going through. That's just providing the ducking of the reverb out of the way of the voice. And then we've got some additional vocals. There's actually the word echo in some of the vocals, so I can play this back for you quickly.
Echoes of love, these all I've ever found.
So I like the fact that there was the word echoes, and actually echoed those by using some automation to send more of those voices to a separate reverb, or for a separate delay, actually, I should say. So there's the echo auxiliary section here, and the standard vocal delay that we were using, and then our reverb, duct reverb that we were having. And then additionally, we had some backing vocals. So this time around, we used the overdubs and panned them left and right. So version 1 was left, version 2 was right. We did have to do a fair amount of manually cutting these down as well. So everything was aligned correctly. We didn't use any additional software like Auto Align to do that. It was a manual job of cutting and pasting these all in the correct positions. The reason for using Isotope's Nectar was because we needed to auto-tune them just a tad, and Bitwig doesn't have its own internal auto-tuning, so we used Nectar for those duties. So that pretty much wraps up everything. We've got an effects section here, which is not much to speak about. A lot of this is just audio editing and bouncing a few reverbs and things down. Mostly just EQ, nothing incredibly impressive going on here as far as processing. And once again, these all come from the Sonic Academy Ultimate Effects libraries. Right, so that's a fairly simple track, but we were going for a sort of simple progressive trance remix here. The final result is a little bit like this. So if you guys are interested in the full track walkthrough, like I said, do go to sonicacademy.com, go check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll catch you soon right here at Sonic Academy. Till then, take care. Cheers.